Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale. How you guys doing? Welcome to the channel. As promised, I have a really good control deck to share with you guys. No legendary cards, so it's going to help you guys on ladder and in challenges with the help of Corrosive Logic, who's a first-time guest onto the channel. Before I get to that, just want to tell you guys quickly about a couple future videos coming to the channel that I know some of you guys are anticipating. Number one is hopefully tomorrow will be the next Pro v Pro with Marcel P versus Tag, and then after that, I finally got Pong onto the channel. It took me forever, but I did. We'll be sharing his two favorite hog decks, one brand new, one kind of old with a little bit of tweaks. So those are two really cool videos coming up soon, and I'm also working on some new strategy videos, not deck reviews, that should be coming in the next week. So a lot on the agenda for Clash Royale. Let's get into this video. So this is the ultimate control deck right now, and it has been modified and updated. Of course, it's Pekka Executioner Control, but it's been modified for the current meta by Corrosive Logic, and he wrote up an incredible deck review on this deck that I will include in the description. It's going to get way more in-depth if you're that type of person than we're going to get in this video. But essentially, it's really, really strong, and we're going to talk about why. So let's start out with, let's see, options. One option about this deck is the Zap versus the Log, because it's an important thing to talk about. There's no legendary cards, but if you have the Log, you might want to substitute it into this deck. Here's the trade-off. Zap is much better against Night Witch, which is everywhere, and Zap is also really good against beatdown archetypes, which are starting to become incredibly popular right now in the meta. Log, however, is still way superior against the bait archetypes, against Goblin Barrel. So if that's what you're running into, if you're running into more of the bait in whatever range you're using this deck, you might want to swap in the Log. If you are running into a lot of beatdown and you're sick and tired of Night Witch, then stick with Zap. So that is really the only substitution in this deck. Again, no legendaries, but 4 epics. So it is relatively epic heavy, although, you know, no legendaries is really good. So moving on, let's start with offense, because the offense of this deck is pretty basic. This is not a cycle deck, it's not a cheap deck. It's 4.1 elixir cost, which for a control deck is within the range of acceptability, but it's still expensive. So you're not always going to have the very best counter in hand to stop your opponent. We'll get to that when we talk about the defense and the deck, and then we'll just hop into some play-by-play after that. But starting out with offense, your main offensive combination is Hog Rider in Lightning. Hog Rider Lightning has never been stronger in the Hog archetype. If you're running Hog Rider without either Lightning or Rocket right now, you might be in trouble. So you have the answers that you need defensively, or I should say offensively, to combo with your Hog Rider to really stop that Inferno Tower or to stop whatever they're going to throw at you on defense. Of course, doesn't do much Lightning, that is, against Tornado, but that's why you have other options in this deck on top of just the Hog Lightning. So if they do have Tornado, you can use your Pekka in some kind of a beatdown way, but we're going to cover a few rules to when and where to use your Pekka in just a few minutes. You don't want to use it early on in the match, starting a big beatdown push. This is not a beatdown deck. However, you do have the hybrid capabilities to execute a really good beatdown push if need be. So we'll talk about that again in just a bit here. So defense is really where this deck shines. It shuts down everything. Of course, beatdown being so popular both in giant graveyard decks and in golem decks and in Night Witch. Night Witch played in beatdown is so strong, even Lava Hound decks. So you really have to have an answer for those big tanks. So giant and golem users are going to run into trouble when they run into your Pekka. Now, of course, Executioner is seeing a lot more life lately with the Night Witch, and I think Executioner Executioner is going to become even more popular in time. So this deck has a lot of good counters to Night Witch specifically, and that is the Executioner Tornado combo. Executioner Tornado is fantastic. You have Lightning, which is great against, you know, everything from Three Musketeers to obviously Night Witch to taking care of your opponent's pumps. So a lot of versatility with the Lightning. And you have Dart Goblin. Dart Goblin is a sneaky rare troop that I think is also going to start seeing some more action, because Dart Goblin is actually a really viable counter to the Night Witch as well. He can target her from a safe distance and then take care of all the spawned bats afterwards because of the fast firing rate. So you do have a lot of options in this deck. Of course, you also have Goblin Gang. You basically have every powerhouse card inside the game right now, all wrapped up inside one deck, except for the legendaries. So you have Tornado. Tornado is so powerful. Again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but you guys know the theme here. So as far as your Tornado goes in this deck, obviously, you're going to be using it against Hog Rider, Goblin Barrel, and Miner to activate your King Tower as soon as possible in the match. And then after that, you're really going to be relying on your Executioner Tornado combo, and that's going to be able to cut down whether it's a balloon coming your way, a Night Witch coming your way, a big swarm of troops coming your way. I mean, there's a ton of versatility packed in the synergy between the Executioner and the Tornado. So you have a lot of options. Now, a couple defensive rules. Early on, you never want to play your Pekka unless they drop their Golem or their Giant, but you don't want to show that you have the Pekka. Now, Corrosive Logic, who's, by the way, did I mention he's a YouTuber? He's a YouTuber. Check out his channel. Really good strategy guides, and just like really has a real good feel of the game and the mechanics of the game. But he says his #1 rule is you never show your Pekka. You never show, I don't know if that sounds right. You never show your Pekka. Sorry, guys. You never show your, I don't edit out. So you never show your Pekka, basically. You want to keep that as a surprise. He says it's really underrated, the effect that the Pekka can have on your opponent if you, I can't say whip it out, if you pull it, if you whip it out, if you play it late in the match. Man, these puns are killing me today. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not going to re-record this, though. I'm not going to do it. So you play you hold your Pekka, basically. You don't want to, you start off the match with a big Pekka push. That would be a mistake. A, you don't want to start off with a Pekka as is, and B, your opponent's going to know you have the Pekka. They're going to try to work around it. The first time you play that Pekka should be for a reason, and that's Corrosive Logic's #1 piece of advice regarding the Pekka. Always have a reason for playing your Pekka. Some matches, you might not even need the Pekka. So have a reason. You're not going to play it for the heck of it. You're not going to play it behind your King Tower to start a huge giant push for no reason other than because you feel like starting a huge giant push. Remember, your offense mainly is going to be your Hog and your Lightning. Now, what if they have Tornado and you can't get around it? That's when you can use your Pekka as part of an offensive push. Now, there's another rule regarding the Pekka and the Executioner. You never play them in the opposite lane as your opponent is pushing. So let's pretend we're a minute or two inside the match. It's a big mistake. Say they drop a Giant in the back. Actually, let's make it even better. Let's say they drop a Knight or an Ice Golem in the back of their King Tower. Now, it could be tempting to go an opposite lane push using a Pekka. Maybe you're at full elixir and you can drop a Pekka and then a few seconds later an Executioner. Well, that would be a big, big mistake. The Executioner, the Pekka, and the Tornado are way too important to burn on opposite lane pushes in this deck. Way too important defensively. So you really have to save the Pekka and the Executioner and the Tornado for good value, meaning you always want to play those cards in the same lane that your opponent is coming at you. So you can see so far in these replays, guys, how, you know, relatively easily we are taking down the Golem Night Witch deck that seems to be everywhere right now. And we're going to see it again in this next replay. Let's go ahead and pay special attention to this replay here. And before I do, really quickly want to cover two situations. #1, single tower situation where you're down one tower. And #2, first plays of the game. First plays of the game here. Corrosive Logic, very, very adamant about this, okay? The first play of the game, you never, ever want to be the one who makes the first move using this deck unless you have both Hog and Executioner in your deck. It's a difficult time right now in the meta to survive if you make a really aggressive starting play and you don't have anything left to defend. So he will not make a first move at all unless he has Hog and Executioner, in which case he'll play the Hog Rider and he knows he has Executioner for defense afterwards. Otherwise, he's waiting for the opponent to make the first move and reacting from there. Now, there's one more thing on offense that I didn't discuss and that I promise we'll get into the play-by-play. One more thing on offense is you're not going to just be relying on the big Pekka push if you happen to need one, and the Hog Lightning. You also have Goblin Gang and Dart Goblin, and you can use those if you're at 10 Elixir and you don't know what else to do and it's not the starting play. You can just play Goblin Gang or Dart Goblin at the bridge. Of course, depending on what deck they're playing. You don't want to use them if they're your best counter. But I talked about the Pekka and the Executioner being played in the same lane as your opponent's push. That's good. But playing the Hog Rider in the opposite lane, that's allowed as well. So you can go opposite lane with your Hog Rider. As a matter of fact, sometimes you'll notice this a lot in Corrosive Logic's gameplay here, but when you play the Pekka and the Executioner in one lane, oftentimes your opponent forgets that you have Hog Rider. I don't know what it is, but you can sneak that Hog Rider in oftentimes as their push is dying out. As you just defended with this really stout controlled deck, then you can sneak in that Hog Rider before they're able to recoup enough Elixir to defend against it. So here comes a big push, and the opponent, of course, has Lightning. You have to be careful because Lightning Log will kill your Executioner. So when you use your Executioner, be ready to cycle to either Dart Goblin, or I should say to play either Dart Goblin or Goblin Gang after they take out your Executioner, because they just burned their Log and their Lightning taking out the Executioner. So that's when you can safely play your secondary defensive options in the Dart Goblin and the Goblin Gang. So that's really a good guide to the deck in terms of what you're going to be trying to do defensively. Now, I did mention when you're down one tower, just a quick little rule for you guys, another rule from Corrosive, right? So many rules for a game. But seriously, you always want to play your Pekka as close to the pocket as possible. So when you play your Pekka, you want to make sure you're protecting your pocket. Right where that Night Witch was just dropped is the pocket. So make sure that you have good pocket coverage using your Pekka, because that's oftentimes where the opponent will drop their tank. Just don't drop him all the way down behind the King Tower if you're down one tower, because your opponent could make you pay really quickly. So here you can see the speed of that Hog Rider getting to the lane, on that right lane, then playing Goblin Gang in the middle. He knows it's going to be another big beatdown push coming, and he knows his opponent has Lightning. So this could be tricky with any other deck. When you're dealing with a big beatdown push, you drop the Pekka early, and then you delay as long as possible on the Executioner and Tornado. Once they use their Log, as you just saw, then you can drop your Dart Goblin. And look at that. We took care of that push really, really well, and then we snuck in that Hog Rider just as I talked about in the right lane. We used the Dart Goblin after the Lightning and Log were used, and the Dart Goblin finished up on those support troops. So now we can go ahead and do the same thing. Basically keep cycling here. You want to keep your Executioner on defense, very, very strong. You can see him taking care of that Night Witch relatively easy there. And now we're going to play the Hog Rider in the pocket, and this should be GG. A really nice Tornado there, pulling that Golem away from that Crown Tower, putting him on the King Tower. Now we have Lightning used, bada bing, bada bang, bada boom. Boom, tower down. So very good job there on Corrosive Logic's part. Let's hop into the next match here. Unfortunately, so he won, he had an 11 win and a 12 win Grand Challenge back to back. Those are what we're taking these replays from. But wouldn't you know, no Lava Hound decks to show you guys. So unfortunately, I don't have any Lava Hound replays. But Lava Hound, it's the same type of deal. You're going to be relying heavily on Dart Goblin, Executioner, and Tornado, obviously, right? And make sure you're using your Tornado for when they go on their big pushes. The Tornado with the Executioner is so incredibly strong right now. And don't underestimate the power of Lightning on defense against Lava Loon pushes, if that's what you're dealing with. But it seems like these graveyard decks are absolutely everywhere. So let's watch this graveyard matchup here. So the Pekka was played in the back there. I'm not sure if Corrosive just broke his own rule there there. I didn't catch the very beginning there. I don't think he started off with the Pekka though. But either way, we'll see if that Pekka can get to the tower. Now, if you play a very late Executioner behind the Pekka there, what you can do is essentially you'll mitigate any risk of swarm troops stopping your Pekka, but more importantly, oftentimes you'll lure out your opponent's tornado. And that's a key part, a critical part of this deck. Now, if we didn't take that right tower like we did so well at the beginning of that match, we could be still in a good spot, because once we lured out that tornado, we could immediately send in that Hog Rider. And obviously tornado, as you guys know, shuts down the Hog Rider. So it's a really good kind of offensive strategy, I guess, or technique to use with this deck, is bait out the tornado with the Executioner Pekka combo. You guys would be surprised at how many people end up using Tornado on the Pekka and the Executioner. If you're carrying Tornado, oftentimes you're just looking to use it, especially if you haven't shown them that you have Hog yet. So oftentimes opponents will go ahead and just boom, use that Tornado against that Pekka there. So that could have been a mistake, Hog Rider there by Corrosive. He played it into his opponent's lane, knowing that they had knowing they had Tornado in hand, but he has a Tornado of his own, and he's going to shut down this Night Witch push along with her bats. However, one of those bats, I think, gets a little chip in. But at this point in the match here, guys, this is not necessarily a 3-crown deck. Of course, you can get a 3-crown with this deck, but it's all about defending. And if you take an early tower like Corrosive did in this match, you can kind of sit back and defend really well. You have a lot of answers to graveyard in this deck. You have, of course, the two small units. You have the Goblin Gang and Dark Goblin, as you saw Corrosive use there. And of course you have your big gun, the Executioner, which you can combo with Tornado if need be. So really a lot of options. You can also usually safely place your Dark Goblin away from the range that Poison would otherwise take him out if they combo a Poison in a graveyard against one of your towers. So here, just very good defense here. Not afraid to use that Tornado defensively if need be, and need was had there, I guess. So at this point, just throwing everything he possibly can at his opponent, stopping that Night Witch from taking down that left tower and walking away with a victory. This next match is really, really interesting. I believe it's the next one. It is a Giant Skeleton deck. Are you kidding me? Giant Skelly? Yeah, this is it. So this is a really cool deck, and it was the 11th match of this Grand Challenge. So it definitely got this guy, Tor Tank, pretty far, and at Astra is also a really good clan. So keep an eye on this deck, guys. Keep an eye. I'm not saying it will be the new meta graveyard deck, but maybe it will be the new meta graveyard deck. There is something to be said about Giant Skeleton and Night Witch kind of having a really, I don't know, it's just, it seems unfair ability to mount an absolutely massive push, and then with that giant bomb, killing all your defensive troops. So watch out for this deck, or try it out yourselves if you want to. So anyway, we see the Giant Skeleton played. That is obviously when we're going to be playing our Pekka. So Pekka going into Giant Skeleton, we're okay with that exchange. Just keep that Giant Skeleton away from your Crown Tower. This, by the way, is going to be a really fun match to watch. So here comes that Night Witch. We have Lightning at ready. We're not going to be afraid to use the Lightning against that Night Witch. We play Dark Goblin, not Executioner. We don't want to burn the Executioner on a counter push when the Pekka is so close to low health, A, and B, we don't know what the opponent's playing yet. We don't know all the cards in their deck, so we don't want to overcommit to our early pushes. Remember, this is a control deck after all. So now we're just going to go ahead and get our very first Hog push of the match underway here. The Hog does reach the tower there. Executioner thankfully targets those Spear Goblins before the Stab Goblins, and look at this, tower down to 274 HP. We feel really good about that, and if he makes the mistake of playing an Executioner or even a Baby Dragon or a Night Witch on that side, we'll go ahead and Lightning it for supreme value there. So Executioner being played to counter that graveyard. There was a Poison play as well, so it's a Graveyard Poison, Executioner, and Tornado all played. That was a very expensive push. I want to say, he might get that Hog Rider in there to take down that tower. Instead, he waits because, like we said, we can get Lightning value on that left tower. No reason to send in the Hog push unless we really need it. So let's focus on the right tower instead. So Night Witch is surprisingly a good counter to the Hog Rider. Rider, that was going to be a nice Hog Lightning combo there for Corrosive. He's able to get a lot of damage, about 1/3 damage off that right tower, and now that he sees the Giant Skeleton inbound in the left lane, he's going to play that Pekka closer to the bridge. Remember, keep a safe distance from those Giant Skeletons and your crown towers. You do not want that. And here comes that Dark Goblin. Dark Goblin's going to do some work back there, unfortunately pulled into the vortex of that tornado before he can take down that baby dragon, and here it comes. This is going to be a pretty costly graveyard push. He might take the tower here, but look at all the damage we've done to the opponent's towers. That was a good defensive tornado there, and then a pretty good defensive slash offensive Hog Rider. He is going to get one hit on that tower with the help of that zap, stymieing that Night Witch for just a second there. So now it is a 1 tower to 1 tower battle here. And here comes that Pekka in a very good clutch Goblin Gang, pulling that Giant Skeleton away from that crown tower. And now the Dark Goblin actually goes down, but the Pekka and the Zap spell actually protect that tower pretty well. Things could have went worse there. So now check this out. I'm not sure what you guys would go with right here. I'm not sure if I would go with the double Pekka, but he goes with the double Pekka, really looking to finish this match out. Double Pekka backed up by the Executioner. However, look at this defense here with that tornado and the Night Witch and the baby dragon. Eventually, both those Pekkas are gonna go down. Poor Dark Goblin going in the other lane. He forgot what tower they were targeting there, and he went after the King Tower. So look at this. Giant Skeleton inbound. He's going to make contact with that crown tower, but just in the nick of time, Corrosive plays the Hog Rider and the Goblin Gang in the opponent's pocket. That was quick thinking on his heels there by Corrosive. What a fun match to watch, and what a weird and interesting deck. Again, guys, I would try that one out if you guys are looking for an interesting Night Witch graveyard deck there. And, you know, let me know how you do with it, by the way. So, guys, I just wanted to give a huge shout out again to Corrosive Logic for sharing this deck. I really love the control meta, and I think it's going to be important to learn your control decks now, maybe more than ever. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Huge shout out to my YouTube partner, Bren Chong. Huge shout out to all you guys for continuing to support the channel. It truly means the world to me, guys. So thank you so much. And as always, take care, guys.